Hello dear viewer, and welcome to the broken Expanse. Today for your viewing pleasure, we have 5 true events that are still yet to be explained. So turn out the lights, sit back, and let's get into the video. For our first tale, picture this. It's a cold winter's night in 1930, and Canadian fur trapper Joe LaBelle decides to finish up work and head to the Anjikuni Village on a shoreline of Nunavut in Canada for food and drinks with the locals, as he had apparently done many times before. However, he was at first perplexed and then horrified to find that the entire village's residents, human and animal alike, were missing. He moved around, checking from hut to hut, looking for any sign of life, but nothing. Just the sound of the winter's air flowing through the village. What disturbed him the most, however, was that every hut was filled, still, with food, clothes, and even the villagers' rifles, still leaning against the door frames. There were even dinners yet to be served and eaten, filling the many pots hanging over fires that had long since died out. LaBelle, in his horror, left immediately for the nearest telegraph office to contact the Canadian Mounted Police. He later stated, "I felt immediately that something was wrong, in view of the half-cooked dishes. I knew they had been disturbed during the preparation of dinner. In every cabin, I found a rifle leaning beside the door, and no Eskimo goes anywhere without his gun. I understood that something terrible had happened." Upon arrival, the police searched meticulously for any sign of life or for any clue pertaining to what may have happened in the village. They also found nothing, save for the bodies of 7 sled dogs that had starved and, in time, been buried by the snow. On the note of burials, however, one other strange discovery was made. Every grave in the village had been dug up. The police had made a point of stating that this couldn't have been the work of any animal, as the many decorative stones placed around the graves were completely undisturbed. There is speculation that this story is fabricated, and there are many differing takes on it. Some going so far as to say that LaBelle had never even been to the village before, and that he wouldn't have known where to look for it on a dark winter's night. With that being said, the fact remains that the Canadian Mounted Police reports show that they did indeed receive a telegraph about the village's disappearance, and they did, upon investigation, find that the village was devoid of all life, with houses full of food supplies, clothing, and rifles, just as LaBelle had said. Next we have La Mancha Negra, or the Black Stain, which is a phenomenon appearing on the roads of Caracas in Venezuela. A mysterious black substance with a texture not too dissimilar from chewed bubblegum. What a lovely image. It first appeared in 1986 and was noticed by road maintenance workers as they were patching some road between Caracas and its airport. At this time it was roughly 50 yards long, but it soon started to spread and cover an impressive 8 miles of road, causing multiple road accidents and casualties. Oddly, it's noted that the material seems to grow during hot and wet weather, and then contract again during colder, drier spells. By 1991, having rendered a large portion of highway unusable, several experts consulted with President Carlos Perez, but could not identify the cause of the substance. By 1992, it had spread to many numerous parts of the city, and was reported, by this time, to have been responsible for 1,800 fatalities. The Venezuelan government, alongside experts from Europe, the US, and Canada, spent millions of dollars investigating La Mancha Negra, with the Ministry of Transport eventually concluding that it was composed of a culmination of oil, as well as dust from the roadside. Under this line of thought, they tried many things to clear the stain. However, no matter what they did, La Mancha Negra would fight back. At first, pressurized water was used to attempt to blast away the stain. When that didn't work, they tried scouring it with detergents, but this too was useless. Eventually they settled on removing the top layers of the affected roads and resurfacing them with limestone in an attempt to, quote, dry it up. And while this appeared to do the trick for a short time, in 1996 it reappeared once again. Later the same year, specially designed cleaning equipment was brought in from Germany to put an end to the matter once and for all. However, once again, in 2001, La Mancha Negra reappeared and is still affecting the roads of Caracas to this very day. For any of you video game fans out there, this next story may seem rather familiar. You see, at some time between 1947 and 1948, two American ships were sailing in the Straits of Malacca when they picked up a distress call coming from a nearby merchant ship. The call, once translated from Morse code, read, "SOS from Ourang Medan. We float. All officers, including the captain, dead in chart room and on the bridge. Possibly whole of crew, dead. I die." The Silver Star, the closest of the two American ships, arrived first to attempt to aid the crew of the Medan. However, when the rescue party boarded the ship, they found that the distress call was, unfortunately, all too accurate. The entire crew of the SS Ourang Medan was dead, eyes and mouths freakishly wide open, with looks of extreme terror etched onto their faces. Then, upon reaching the comms room, where the signal had not long been sent from, the officer there, too, was dead, in the same manner as the others, with his finger still resting on the telegraph he was just using. The rescue party moved cautiously throughout the ship, looking for any survivors or any reasoning as to how this could have happened. But nothing. No signs of life at all. The only thing they noted was an eerie chill and sense of impending doom, seemingly following them all throughout the lower decks. This despite it being a 43-degree day in Celsius, or 110 for those of you who use Fahrenheit. Another important thing to note is that the ship, just like the corpses, disturbingly had no signs of damage or injury, respectively. It becomes even stranger then that the ship, after the rescue crew had completed their sweep of it and were preparing to tow it to land for further investigation, inexplicably ignited and then exploded, destroying the ship entirely, thus sending the SS Ourang Medan and its deceased occupants down to the watery depths, never to be seen again. And for you aforementioned video game lovers, Ourang Medan, when translated, reads, "The Man from Medan." In August of 1971, Maria Gomez Pereira was going about her usual daily business when she noticed something on her kitchen floor, a stain that had not been there prior, and suddenly appeared. Initially, as one would, she assumed it to be caused by any number of normal stain-inducing things. This was a kitchen after all. However, no matter how many times she scrubbed the stain, it simply could not be removed. Then, in only a matter of days, the stain no longer appeared to be formless, but in fact, that of a face. More disturbingly, even in as little as a few hours after its full formation, the face would change its positions, its expressions, as though it were alive in some way. Maria, understandably upset by this, pleaded with her husband Juan to do something. So he, alongside his son Miguel, decided on a more brute force approach. They proceeded to take pickaxes to the floor and dig out the entirety of the kitchen before laying down fresh concrete. This, at first, seemed to have worked, and Maria felt her nerves calming again. But this was short-lived, and in as little as a week later, the face had reappeared. This only being a small town, word spread quickly of the apparition, and had eventually reached the mayor, who, curious about this, now dubbed Belmez Face, decided to ask the family to cooperate with him on having the stain excavated. The family, of course, disturbed by the phenomenon and wanting the matter resolved, agreed, and so work went underway to dig up the surrounding area. It was at this point a possible connection was made, as under the kitchen, where there should have been nothing but foundation and dirt, there were numerous human skeletons. This home had been built on a graveyard. Wanting to abate whatever was causing this face to appear, all of the skeletons were removed and reinterred into a Catholic cemetery, and the kitchen was refilled with concrete once more. Maria thought that, finally, the issue would be resolved, and the family could get back on with their lives. She was wrong. After a few weeks, another face appeared, different than before. then another face, and then another. All of these faces would move and change and even disappear to be replaced by yet another one. Multiple investigators, researchers, and officials came and went, performing all manner of tests, hoping to finally understand what was causing these occurrences. None could find any evidence of pigments, dyes, or paints, which ruled out a hoax, and nothing could be found naturally in the foundations of the house, nor anything in use in the kitchen that would cause such a thing. The Belmez faces seemed, for all intents and purposes, to have a life all their own. Being struck by lightning is not something that you would want to happen to you. At least, I know I wouldn't want to be. A surge of superheated electricity passing through the body at as much as 5 times the temperature of the surface of the sun. And if it doesn't kill you, the likelihood of severe neurological complications is stark. Thankfully though, the chances of it happening to any one individual is roughly 1 in 13,000. Now imagine over a century ago, a smaller population would have made it an even rarer occurrence. That, coupled with the fact that there'd be less metal objects all over our streets and in our skies, would have made it very unlikely indeed. However, unfortunately for Major Walter Summerford, he would defy the odds. Major Summerford was a British officer who, whilst charging a battlefield in Belgium in World War I with his trusty steed, would not fall foul of enemy fire, but of a lightning strike. He was immediately flung from his horse by the bolt, and not by virtue of the fall but the electric current, left paralyzed from the waist down. Due to this, he could no longer actively serve in the military, and so took early retirement. He settled down in Canada and tried to continue on with life as best as he could. To ease the boredom of civilian life, he took up fishing, which he became deeply passionate about. Then in 1924, 6 years after he was struck by lightning, he had been on his way to do a spot of fishing at a local river, when he decided to take a break and rest under a large tree. Unbeknownst to him, the sky became grey, and a storm started to form. Then, defying all odds, the very tree he was under was struck by a surge of electricity, flowing down the tree and grounding itself in him. This incident left Major Summerford paralyzed further, this time down the entire right side of his body. Miraculously, this was short-lived, and he regained the use of the right side of his body, and, even more remarkably, the jolt had given him back the use of his legs. This, of course, was a huge delight for the former soldier, who made it almost his life's mission to walk any and everywhere he could. Doing just that on a pleasant summer day in 1930, another 6 years since his previous dance with the amps, he noticed the clouds start to form and a slow rumbling in the sky that, by this time, had become more than an uneasy sound for the man. And then, for a third time, lightning shot down from the sky, striking him directly. This, unfortunately, would ultimately be what killed him. The strike left him completely bedridden, and while he did hold on for a further 2 years, he eventually succumbed to his injuries. Major Summerford was laid to rest in 1932, and one would hope he would finally be at peace. However, 4 years after his passing, in total a further 6 years from the strike that ultimately was his end, a storm started brewing in the area in which his grave was located. And as sheer bad luck would have it, lightning came crashing down, striking his gravestone, going straight through it and grounding itself in the very area his body would have been. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video and found it suitable for the Halloween month. Let me know in the comments, what are your plans for this year's spooky day? And what costumes do you have in mind? You can let me know what you would like me to cover next, either here or on my Reddit page, which I'll link in the description below. And if you want to spread a bit of love and positivity in the world, I'd really appreciate it if you click that like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget that little bell notification icon too. It really means a lot. Take care, everyone, and don't stray too far from the path, lest you end up in the broken Expanse.